Hello, you're listening to Dan's Cadre of Experts. This is our second episode with Tim Fallon. He was just too big to fit in one episode. Tim, thanks for coming on. So this time, you've got your Dallas Safari Club hat on. You've got your Go on Safari Big Game Hunter hat on. But let's back up. In case somebody didn't listen to our first episode, explain how it is we're sitting here in the middle of Central Texas in the hill country talking about African safaris. How did it all start?
Well, you're on the FTW Ranch, which I bought, named it the FTW Ranch in 1996, and a lot of infrastructure build, but finally started the SAM program, the Sportsman's All-Weather All-Terrain Marksmanship program, in 2005, our first couple test courses, and then it launched off in 2006, and it's gone crazy ever since.
And before that, you had to make enough money to facilitate all of this.
Yep. Somehow I had to pay the bills. But you know what they say, Dan, about the best way to make $1 million in the ranching business is start with $10 million.
Yeah. How's that going for you?
and that's about right.
Indeed. But, so here you're doing hunter training.
Yep.
Working with the military a bit also, which we covered in the first podcast.
Yep.
But it's all because you love hunting.
In fact, at my age, I've reached an age, at some point I woke up in my 40s or 50s and thought, I'm ready to spend the rest of my life dedicated to conservation.
Bless your heart.
People don't realize that hunting is conservation. In fact, if it were not for hunting, a lot of these animals would be extinct. Take a look at Kenya as a prime example.
Go into detail. Explain this.
Well, I call it the Great Kenya Experiment. So Kenya outlawed elephant hunting in 1973 and all hunting in 1976, I think it was formally, bird hunting and everything. At the time, there were 160,000 elephants in Kenya. Today, there's 12,000. They're being guarded by the Army. So I don't think hunting was the problem. To add to that point, 88% of all African elephants live in the countries that allow elephant hunting.
88%.
88%. That's not an accident. So proving that if there's sustainable hunting in force and highly regulated, controlled, with anti-poaching programs involved, the animals thrive and grow and survive. And it comes down to, you can blame it on a lot of things, but unfortunately, if the animal pays, it stays.
Conservation through commerce.
Yes.
I've heard that phrase.
Yes, and it works. Absolutely works. I mean, there's hundreds of proven cases. Look at Pakistan. I mean, the examples are endless.
Well, Pakistan, positive or negative?
Very positive.
Okay.
1980, Wild Sheep Foundation, back then it was called FNAWS, Foundation for North American Wild Sheep. They went to the Pakistani government, developed a program. They have some really unique animals in Pakistan. 4 of them happen to be the different species of markhor. The Suleiman, the Kashmir, different, 4 different species. At the time, there were an estimated in 1980 about 2,500 to 3,000 markhor left of all 4 species. And it was headed downward. And because the sheep, they're goat and sheep herders and so forth, and markhor do nothing but compete with their own animals. So they went to them and put a program together. The government would get half the money, well, roughly half. The government would give half the money to the local, communities for anti-poaching, to build hospitals, schools, etc. Bottom line is the outfitters, certain qualified outfitters, would get to charge on top of that fee for the hunt itself and, the guiding and all the expenses that go with the operation. And today there's an estimated 30,000 of those animals left.
Excellent.
So in 40 years, 42 years, the animals, it's gone up, 1,000% almost. It's just unbelievable.
Because the value of an animal in the past was just whatever food content, protein content it had. Now it's worth thousands of dollars to these people.
And all the citizens of the local community, this mountain range that happens to have one of the markhor, they're now employees of the operator, the outfitter. They now get the food. They now get the revenue stream from the permitting process. And the antis will often say, well, the people on the ground, the communities don't get any benefit out of the hunting. That's crap.
That's not what I've seen.
That is absolutely not what I've seen. You've seen it.
Right.
Especially in Africa when you're dealing with elephants and hippos and buffalo and massive amounts of meat. I mean, I've killed several elephants. And
how many have you eaten?
I have eaten it.
Yeah, but you haven't eaten the whole elephant.
Not the whole thing, no. Talking 12,000 pounds, it'd be a little tough. But they, literally in 6 hours, that elephant's a blood spot on the ground. They use everything. And the community, many communities get to share that meat. And the bone and the hide and so on and so forth.
Yeah, what gets wasted?
Nothing.
Nothing.
It's an absolute wonderful program.
That's what I've observed, when I'm hunting in Namibia, for example. When I take a shot, I'm going to eat 2% of this animal, probably less than that.
Right.
But the village benefits
Yep.
tremendously. So
They do. They're employing the villagers. There are actually many cases, like I can name several of my friends I've hunted with in Africa. They actually go hire the poachers to run their anti-poaching program.
Who's better at it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So it works.
I was in Zambia 2 years ago, and one thing that shocked me was the number of snares that they had. They had piles. It was thousands and thousands of snares, and that's a horrible way to kill an animal.
Yep, absolutely awful. And it's indiscriminate. It's like the big thing in Mozambique, Mark Haldane, who runs Zambezi Delta over there, that's a success story, unbelievable. Got the area in the early 90s. They had an estimated 250 to 300 buffalo left in the area. It was just wiped out in their Frelimo-Renamo wars, for 30-year war they called it, and so forth. And today, with all of his anti-poaching programs, there's over 15,000 buffalo.
Excellent.
And I mean, we flew over them in helicopters, and it's just a sea of buffalo out in these swamps. It's unbelievable. But their big thing there is these massive, I call them lion traps, but it's a big clamshell trap.
Leg trap.
Leg trap with the teeth welded on it. And I mean, I don't care if you're a human or you're an elephant or whatever, you're on that and you got a problem. In fact, I was on several of his anti-poaching programs, patrols, and one morning we found a warthog caught in this thing, and it's just, I mean, I cried like a baby. Terrible. Awful. So, unless you have those anti-poaching programs in place, look, people poach for two reasons, either to eat or for income. And sometimes, obviously, a combination of both. But most of the poaching going on is subsistence, what they call it the bushmeat market. And it's people that would rather hunt than raise livestock. And it's just absolutely tragic. It's terrible.
And instead, if they put in place a hunting program, what I find interesting is the animal that has the least value to the herd, the post-reproductive old bull, has the highest value to the hunter.
Absolutely does.
And it's not infrequent for us to take an animal and its teeth are worn out. I mean, the whole animal's worn out, right, but it happens to have the biggest horns, and that's what the hunters want, and right, and the herd has no use for them. I just think that's a beautiful symmetry there.
It is, but that's not what the antis would tell you.
Oh, I know.
They're after the word trophy, and they think we shoot the biggest one, throw the meat away, and that's absolutely not the case. The average hunter, 95% of the people I know and train here, which is hundreds every year, thousands at the end after many years, are always, they want the oldest.
Right, post-reproductive.
Post-reproductive.
No value to the herd.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, so when I grew up, I never would have thought that I'd go on safari. And then with your help, with your training and then your suggestions on where to go, we've been overseas 6 times now and had a splendid time. So is this something people can do still?
Absolutely. I mean, and the best way to do it is just come to one of the shows, Houston Safari Club, Dallas Safari Club, SCI, Wild Sheep, etc., and just come shop and talk to people, because you can do a week safari in South Africa or Namibia and have a wonderful time. But here's what I tell people. It's the best drug in the world. You do it once and you're going back.
Oh, indeed. I am the poster child, because I wanted to go see how it looked, and now we go back as often as we can.
Yeah, and it's very reasonable. Like today, the market prices in North America for a North American elk hunt, moose hunt, brown bear hunt, et cetera, have just skyrocketed. And you can go to Africa several times for the same price you're going to pay for a Dall sheep hunt in Alaska, which is now going for $20,000-$25,000. You can go to South Africa 2 or 3 times for that.
You can spend a lot of money on a whitetail right here in Texas.
You certainly can.
Mm-hmm. So let's say $600 a day. Is that the typical?
Yeah. Plains game hunt. Yeah.
Yeah. Plains game hunt and that's room, board, and hunting.
Yep.
And trophy fees. Add to that airplane tickets, and you're there.
Yeah. Trophy fees and airplane tickets, and then you got to, get your what I call memories home. The skull cap and the horns and whatever. And then have it mounted, of course, and you can tell I like taxidermy. So
indeed, you keep the taxidermist busy. I've always thought if somebody had told you when you were young that you're going to have to do all this and pay for it, it would have been a daunting task.
It would have been. but it's been fun to go through the journey over the years.
So what's your new job up in Dallas?
Well, I've been the president of the Dallas Safari Club Foundation for 3 years. In fact, my 3-year term is up December 31, coming soon. They asked if I would step in and become president-elect of Dallas Safari Club, and after some agonizing prayer and thought over it, I just decided, you know what, might be where I should be. So I've taken on that task. So I'm president-elect for a year, and then you're president for a year, and then you're past president for a year, and you're busy in all 3 jobs. But it's very, very rewarding.
Does this involve travel? What are you doing?
Well, it's about, at the end of the day, I'm either in Dallas probably 7 to 10 days a month. If you're doing it right, you should be.
I'd like to hope you are.
Yeah, no, I am. I've taken it very seriously. There's so many missions, and all the organizations are wonderful.
But I want to hit on them. I'm curious about concert, and keep going.
And what's really wonderful to me is that now all the organizations are starting to actually work together towards the same cause from all of our common enemies, which is, the antis are going after the no more importation of quote trophies, and they've hit the U.S. up with that. Fortunately, it hasn't gone anywhere. Now they're in the EU trying to talk them into it for the second time. And then, of course, you've always got the CITES issues and, the importation of what's huntable, what's not. And, the problem is at CITES, every country gets a vote.
What's CITES again?
It's the Committee for International Trade of Endangered Species. So it controls fauna, flora, basically everything. I think the numbers I've read, there's now 38,000 different species of something controlled by CITES. And one of the problems in the system, it's a great concept, and it was probably needed at the time, but it's gotten very political. And now you've got, for instance, at this year's CITES thing, which all of us were there, Dallas, Houston, Safari Club International, Wild Sheep, et cetera, was, for instance, the country of Togo, I think they pronounce it, in Northwest Africa, doesn't even have hippos. But they put a petition forward that hippos should no longer be allowed to be hunted or exported. Well, wait a minute, you don't have the asset. Why? You've already killed all yours off, so what? But they've been paid off, we think. There's some corruption there. So they put this motion forward, and then the panel has to listen to days and days of this diatribe. Most of it's a bunch of crap. None of it's very little of it's scientific. And it's just tragic. It just wears you down after a while. So we're fighting that constantly. All the organizations are fighting that kind of corruption and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a long battle. That's about 10 podcasts long, but. Yeah, no, look, I'm truly enjoying it. It's a wonderful organization. Corey Mason, our CEO, is one of the finest human beings I've ever met. Great guy.
Okay, so tell me about your typical member.
Not enough of them.
Yeah, but that's the point I was going to make. It's not somebody that hunts necessarily hunts on safari. It's anybody that's interested in conservation.
Generally speaking, to answer your question, the average member at either Safari Club or Dallas or Houston or Wild Sheep is generally an international hunter. So this is where all the outfitters from all over the globe come for a 4-day show at any one of the shows. And you as an international hunter get to go shop and figure out where you want to go next or meet the person you're going to hunt with, et cetera. But there are some just general whitetail hunters. Texas Whitetail Hunters is a member of the club, the organization. It's a real cross mix, which is a healthy thing. But out of the millions of hunters in the United States, you'd think these organizations like Houston and Dallas and Safari Club would be a lot bigger than they are, and they're not. So I think between the 4 major organizations, which again is Dallas, Houston, Safari Club, and Wild Sheep, they're probably total of maybe 100,000 members, which is a very small percentage of the hunters in the United States.
Well, I brought it up because I'm a life member of Houston,
right.
but we have members that hunt nothing but birds.
Yep.
And so
everyone's
welcome is the point.
Right, yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, a lot of the exhibitors inside the shows, the Houston show or the Dallas Safari Club, there's fishing outfitters in there, bird hunting outfitters in there, of course, big game, and then just deer hunters and between Mexico, U.S., and Canada, and then Europe is really catching on rapidly, which is wonderful. You know, the roe deer hunting in the different countries and so forth. You could literally spend your life hunting the world.
I think you have.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Got some more work to do, though.
You got in all the continents? Probably nothing in Antarctica yet.
No, that's the one continent we can't hunt. I'd love to go hunt the leopard seal, but they don't allow that. But yeah, I've hunted on all 6 of the huntable continents.
Interesting.
So it's fun. I just spent 3 more weeks in Africa representing Dallas Safari Club and doing the AGMs, the annual general meeting for custodians in South Africa, NAPFA in Namibia, the Namibian Professional Hunter Association, and the ZPGA, the Zimbabwe Professional Guide Association. And there's so many encouraging things going on. Those guys are heroes. I mean, what they're doing is phenomenal. All working on common anti-poaching programs. They're very inclusive with the governments. The government, all 3 government game departments get it. These organizations help them understand what the quotas should be, and they're starting to believe the outfitters. So if I'm an outfitter and I have a 10-year concession on a big chunk of land, you know, I'd obviously want to take care of that. You don't want to overhunt it. You don't want to, you know, you want to make sure the poaching's in solid shape and everything's going well there. So the governments are starting to realize that there's real value bringing those guys in, inclusive to them to be partners, if you will. The other really encouraging part is, remember, over the years, you've been doing this long enough now, you got your photographic safaris and you got your hunting safaris.
I do both.
And you do both, but a lot of the industry bashes each other. That's going away, fortunately, because the photographic now realizes to have a healthy photographic safari area, you have to have the hunting side because they bring in the anti-poaching. And so now all of a sudden
you need something to photograph.
Yeah, exactly. And now in Zimbabwe, it's one association now.
Excellent.
It's no longer 2.
I'm encouraged.
Yeah, no, it's very encouraging.
Talk about these concessions, because I found that interesting when I started to learn about this. So when someone's granted a concession, this is on public, government land.
Government land. Right.
Tell about all the things they have to do.
Oh, Lord.
It's not like you just go out with a gun and start shooting animals, is it?
Yeah, and it's quite different from West Africa, Namibia, and now the Congo's open, so there's those areas too, up, you know, further north. But then all the way across to the east, which is Mozambique and Tanzania, and then you got Zimbabwe and Botswana and South Africa, everything in between. They're all basically run the same. The English were the original ones to set it up, and how it was originally set up, still in Uganda, went back to that. So you have a national park.
Okay.
Then typically, some of the national parks allow hunting in it to control the population, but typically you got a national park, and then you have hunting concessions around that national park. And then around that, you have the communal lands, what they call communal lands, which is tribal land, basically. And so they issue permits in the tribal or community land, and then they issue a quota to the outfitter for the concession. The government makes a lot of money off those concessions. So for instance, in Botswana, some of those concessions are upwards of 1 million acres. I mean, it's a lot of land and a lot to take care of. So you want to try to get them on minimum 5, hopefully 10 years, some places even 20. So you put in water wells, you build infrastructure, you put in anti-poaching programs, you hire everybody in the local community that you can as your cooks and your guides and your anti-poaching, your maintenance people, et cetera. So it's kind of a...
And you pay a fee for the privilege.
And you pay, yeah. And we as hunters, so for instance, at Botswana, a hunt I just did last year on opening day when it opened back up after 7 years of being closed, the people were just tickled to death. They couldn't believe it was finally open again. I mean, they were literally doing dances in the streets. And so they had a job again, I'll be darned. And then they got all this meat from the harvest of the elephant.
When the hunter pulls the trigger, a fee is paid.
Yep.
The hunter eats a small amount.
Yep.
The village eats a large amount.
Right. And then, so what happens is our daily fee for that hunt pays the outfitter and he's got to pay for the concession, which is typically very expensive. We're talking $30,000, $40,000 a year for the concession. And then, of course, he's got the operating expenses and the anti-poaching programs and that sort of thing. So getting rich quick is not the reason you're an outfitter, I guarantee you. Most of them will make some money, but they don't make a killing, if you know what I mean. It's a lot of work. They do it for the love of the industry and their passion.
Oh yeah, everybody I meet over there, that's what makes the trip so much fun.
Yep.
All right, so let's say maybe we've convinced somebody today, Tim, that they might want to do this. So what's the first step? Go to the convention. When is that this year or next year?
Well, they're January. So this year it's Dallas is first, the 5th through the 8th. Then the next weekend is Wild Sheep. The following weekend's Houston Safari Club. And then Safari Club International is in Nashville this year towards the end of February. I think it's the third weekend in February.
These are really expensive to attend, aren't they?
No, they're not expensive at all.
Houston's $15.
Yeah, I think Dallas is $25 a day, and Safari Club something else. I don't know, but it's not a lot of money.
And less for military.
Yeah.
Okay, and so when you go to this, you're going to meet Tim Fallon, the guy that'll teach you how to hunt.
Yep.
You'll meet all the outfitters.
Yep.
Let's see, there's weapons, ammo.
Oh, everybody.
Cooking.
Yep. Taxidermy.
You got it all.
Everything's there.
So that's how we start. That's how you'd recommend somebody start this process?
I would, I'd do some research, do some reading, but most people that want to get into hunting have a hankering for, okay, I'm going to go hunt an elk, or I want a sheep, or I want an antelope, or I'd love to go kill a big kudu, with the big spiral horns. Well, so begins your journey, and so ends your naivete, if you will, because you're about to get a great education. And going to those shows is wonderful because the directories are all built on country or species or area of the world that you want to hunt, and so it's like the ultimate boy shopping trip. It's unbelievable. Of course, more and more, there's more and more women doing it now, which is wonderful.
Oh yeah, both my wife and daughter have gone with us.
Yeah.
But to me, if you do it right, the preparation, and I'm talking about setting up your gear, setting up your hunt, setting up your travel. How do you travel with weapons, for example? Right. To me, that prep is half the fun.
It is half the fun, absolutely.
And if you pull it off and everything works, it's even more fun.
Happy days, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, like in my case, and you probably do too, I've got 2023 and 2024 booked already for the hunts that I'm going to go do. Trips, I should say. Some are fishing trips. And so, but I like to keep 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 booked out in advance. Gives me something to look forward to.
Oh, indeed.
And do the research and so forth. So, no, it's a great way to start. I would recommend to folks be aware of the back of a magazine ad. Let's say, it's great to make send email and start getting some questions answered and that sort of thing. That's wonderful, but you need to meet the person you're about to go live with for a week or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, however long the hunt's going to be. And people will be shocked, to your point, how inexpensive a plains game hunt in Namibia or South Africa really is. But
there's quite a range of hunts out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I got a simplified way of doing it. I just ask you.
Well, that's a way. Yeah. But I mean, it's, as I said earlier, it's the best drug in the world, because if you do one, you're going back. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any inclination my first trip over. I went after plains game, leopard, and buffalo. Those were kind of my hot buttons. And I had no inclination to want to shoot an elephant or hunt an elephant. Mm-hmm. On day 3, damn near got killed by an elephant. And I thought, I think I could hunt these things. Of course, I went full retard and have done a bunch of them. But it's just part of the love of the industry. It's an addiction. It really is.
If anybody ever comes to the lodge and sees all of this, they'll realize that you've obviously enjoyed this. So it looks like it's been a life well lived.
Yeah, I've been very blessed. Mm-hmm. Very, very blessed. Of course, you make your own luck.
Oh, absolutely. But no, this is challenging. That's why I go over. It's a challenging deal. It's so much fun, and I photograph more animals than I shoot, and I see more animals than I photograph. So it's quite an experience.
Well, I've heard from several friends of mine that you actually enjoy being with the hunter.
Indeed.
Sometimes more than you do being the hunter.
Oh, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But the experience is priceless. I've got another trip planned, and I'm not quite 2 years out like you, but I'm definitely, we've got the bug.
Yeah.
All right, Tim. So, like we're hunter advocates, we see how it works in conservation. You're actually giving back through, through your work with the Safari Club, and then giving back to the military right here at FTW by giving this out as a training facility. What else you want to tell us? You get the last word.
I get the last word. I would just suggest to people, if you're not so much a hunter, or even if you're an anti-hunter, I would just do your research and start making decisions based on science and not on emotions. That's the toughest thing. Like the population's exploded. So the world has way too many people, way more people than we've ever been used to. Roughly 1 billion in the year 1900 now. They estimate by 2050 it'll be 10 billion. It's already, 8.5 billion or something. So there's been this massive population. This wildlife has lost a tremendous amount of its free roaming ranges. And we have to make adjustments for that. And sustainable conservation is absolutely the only tool that'll save these animals. And I get it if people hate us for hunting, but the real statistics are 20% of us hunt, 60% of us don't really care if we hunt, and 20% of us hate us. So it's these people on the 20% on the hate side really make a lot better noise than we do. We're busy, we're running lives, running businesses, etc. But they're educating these 60% in the middle, and some people say it's 10, 80, and 10. I don't know what number, but it's not far off from that. I just wish these folks would understand why we do it, and we're not just killers, we're conservationists. And sure, we enjoy what we do. I mean, give me a break.
I love the challenge.
I love a challenge, and I love the hunt, and I cry like a baby on every animal I shoot. I mean, you just took one of God's lives. But if you don't do it, it's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah, I've met so many families in Africa that benefit from the hunting industry. Do you got any numbers? You want to throw out some dollars?
Oh, it's billions.
Billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars.
So going to Africa on $10 a day is not what
Right.
is keeping the company or the continent moving.
Right.
It's hunters.
And there's just so many conservation stories. I mean, good Lord, look at Botswana. It has 62,000 too many elephants for the land mass that's available. 62,000. What do you do with 62,000 of anything that eats 200 pounds of green a day?
You sell them to hunters for $50,000 a piece.
So unfortunately, I mean, and right now, I mean, hunters are paying to move thousands of elephants out of Namibia back into the Congo, where they used to be from. We're moving them back up there. We're moving them from the eastern side of Zimbabwe into the more remote parts of Mozambique, where they used to be 100 years ago, but they got poached out. So the money we're paying to make sure these animals are thriving and growing is pretty astounding.
You're doing great things, Tim, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for coming on the show today.
Appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
We'll get you back on soon.
All right. Thank you.